this is life and death, bro. What I'm dealing with, what I see with men coming into Sacred Sons, sometimes it's literally life and death. So that's how real it is out there for people. And so if you or someone who's listening to this is questioning whether or not this is meaningful work, or if they should be doing it, or if it's something that you just do because this is what you feel called to in service, like it's worthy, it's necessary, it's needed, and it's highly valuable in a culture that promotes a lot of guilt and shame around emotion. What we are providing is a space to grieve. Your grief is welcome. We can work on that guilt and shame piece, but the grief is a requirement.
I was walking with a female friend here close to the river, and she told me, what is this podcast that you're going to make tomorrow? And I told her about you and Sacred Sons. And she said, like, this is really important because I see that men are not masculine anymore. And I was like, what do you mean that? And she said, like, they're very feminine. And and I said, like, okay, what it means to be feminine? And she said, like, yeah, they're full of anger. They're full of fear. And this is very feminine. She told me that, and I was like, oh wow, that is really interesting, that the woman perceive men with a lot of fear, and they feel that that is a very feminine energy.
Yeah, that is powerful.
And it put me to think a lot about what's going on with us right now. I have 2 kids, and I have to admit that I'm separate. I don't live with my kids; they live here in the city. But I'm more concerned about my 2 boys than to my girl. I have a girl as well, and girls get more support, and I have the feeling that we as men are a little bit more alone in that sense.
I love that you spoke to those 2 things. One, that fear was the characteristic that women were sensing from men in terms of them being out of integrity with their masculinity. It's not that they are not cordial or respectful or nice, right? It's that they're fearful, and that men are in chaos. And what men naturally bring to community, to culture, is order, is structure, this is how we're going to get this done. This is how we're going to get there. This is how we're going to accomplish it. Order and structure. That's what the feminine responds to, right? We've all heard these sayings, like the masculine is the container for the feminine to dance within or to flow within. And that's true. And we need to feel that, men and women both need to feel that, both in intimate relationship and on a grand scale. That's what time it is right now. That's what's happening right now. Like, men are being called by the world, by the feminine at large, by the women in Iran, by the women in, in North America, to stand up, to show up, to move forward in a new way with that structure. And so, because I think a lot of men are in a state of the unknown, fear of the unknown. And so a big part of the work that we're doing is initiatory work. It's rites of passage work, where we're bringing men through the unknown, not to bring them to the edge of the unknown to stop, but to go through that. And what we find is that when we go through that, and when we go through that together in brotherhood, we come out the other side, not to be enlightened or to be better than or above anyone. We come out the other side to be prepared for what this world really is and what this world is really offering us. And so we need all men's gifts, all men's skills. It's not about, being a man to meet some version of some guy in a movie. It's not about that. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
about you,
exactly.
Felipe. Felipe, you've got your natural gifts and
Yeah,
we need your gifts too. Adam, I've got my gifts and we need my gifts as well. And so we're calling men in at this time into brotherhood because we know it's like it's a knowingness too. Like, and I want to be real because this is the real. We're not going to do this alone. The age of the lone wolf is over. When we come together as men in brotherhood, that container, that
please.
structure gets stronger and stronger, and the women and children feel more and more safety.
Yeah, I never had like a mentor, and I realized that I'm 42, and I mean, I've been doing a lot of work on myself and trying to find
Right.
myself. And one of the things that I just wanted to work really hard to be a role model for my kids.
We all of the children need it, and you feel this to give your boys the thing that you didn't have. I mean, that's the
Right.
wish of all of us as parents is to provide our children some of those things that we felt were missing. And it's for the benefit of your daughter because I have
Mm.
3 sons, right? I have 3 sons and I have a girl on the way. So feeling blessed for that. And in raising, like you raising your boys in a good way and me raising my boys in a good way and giving them that mentorship, giving them that guidance, giving them that home and that, whatever it is that's required of us, all of it. I like to call it all of it because that's what it
Yeah.
is. It's all of it. It's not just the pretty pictures that people post on Instagram. It's all of it. And we have to take all of it. It's the teenage years, it's the terrible twos, it's the cleaning up the mess, all of it. Right. And so you doing your role and me doing my role, like that's what it is. That's what it's really about on a
Mm.
grand scale, like coming back to it, like
Mm.
that makes a safer world for our daughters.
I think it's really beautiful. Something that you were saying in an interview that was like it takes like 6 people to raise a child. That is not only mom and dad, but that they need this tribe, like a tribe in a
Yeah.
supportive environment who are going to shape and model these kids. Because I don't believe that as a father or as how I am that I'm perfect or that I have all the tools and all the things that my kids need. I think they need a lot of other men to get the best out of each one.
Yeah.
Not only what I have to provide,
It's never always going to come from us. That is just the reality. Um, kids need ideas, inspiration, influence that comes from other people that they can trust.
Mm,
And so it's the parents' job to put them in circles and associate with other adults and other humans that we can lean into trust with, because it's just a natural part of the human psyche and like desire to push our limits, to find the edges and then sometimes to go past the edges, and especially for young boys,
mm,
like young, like I don't know how it was when you were a teenager, but I was like, I want to wreak havoc. I'm gonna like I grew up doing graffiti, skateboarding,
mm,
like doing things in a way, not only push my own edges, but to push the edges of society and culture. There's
yeah.
another part of men that in young boys that this is a real energy. And so we get the opportunity to contain that energy within our beings. But during those fundamental years, like you were saying, without mentorship, that energy spins into chaos. And what mentorship does
Mm,
is it brings order to that chaos. It brings a little bit of reflection. We all have to start with self knowledge. Knowledge of
mm,
self is key, but it's only one key, right? And there's other things that we get through reflections, through the reflection of others. That self knowledge can actually only take us so far in tribe. We actually need tribal knowledge. We need the knowledge of others and the acknowledgement of ourselves through the eyes of others and through the voices and affirmations of others to truly know ourselves,
mm,
if I'm making sense. And so if I know this as an adult and we see this playing out in culture right now, um, like it's time for us as men to stand up and to offer solutions. We don't have to wait. And so, Felipe, I'm here to tell you we have a solution. And it's not the solution, it's just one, and it's called Sacred Sons. And so we're inviting a space for men to come in, to unpack their shadows, to tell their stories, to be held and to be witnessed in the things that they are carrying so that they can put it down and get to work, because we got a lot of work to do out here in society. And no matter what that is, what it is that we're working on, like we get the opportunity as men in this age of consciousness to shed those layers of those pieces. We know it's isolation, addiction, shame, fear, uh, it's all of the things. It's all of the things. And what I've been seeing is that for too long we've been holding these things in isolation, putting them on our women, and now it's time we're calling in men to support other men, and it's powerful work. And then not only that, we're calling in the leaders to help mentor these young men in our son's youth program. And so that's what the work is, as we see it from this moment.
When you see guys with big muscles and full of tattoos crying,
Mm.
releasing, you start realizing, oh my God, we've been hiding behind a mask. What is the root of this?
I'm going to say there's many roots, and the problem is actually in the soil. We are absorbing poisonous patterns, um, toxic lineal trauma that has been passed down into the soil. And so it's
Mm,
time that we get together and start tilling again. We got to add nutrients to our soil so that the many roots of the many cultures of human beings across this entire planet can begin to like grow in a nourished way, grow in a good way, grow in a way that is aligned with, the truth and knowingness of what it is to be human. I'm of the belief that like I'm of the belief that there is a general goodness that exists within all of humanity. However, we are currently absorbing, like I'm saying, it's not toxic masculinity by any means, but we're absorbing the toxic chemicals that have been, put into this soil on our precious earth, right? And so that's what we're dealing with. And it's no excuse not to get started in tilling. It's not to
mm,
it's not to become a victim. It's not to say like, hey, these problems are so challenging that now it's time to surrender to them and lay down my armor because I can't do anything. That's a bullshit story.
mm,
The other thing I know about humans is once we are activated, once we are embodied to any extent, really, we get the opportunity to give back, to be of service, to help others, to see others. And the more that we take up that banner and the more that we believe in that and believe in ourselves, like we get the opportunity to nourish the soil for the next generation, to enrich that soil, right? And so there's always going to be roots. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be addiction. That's the fact. We live in this time. What are we doing about it? That's what I'm here to say. It's like there are many people who are going to have entire careers um, dissecting the trauma and preserving the pain. I'm here to transmute it into purpose, into action,
mm,
into empowerment, into giving
mm,
back, into planting trees, into raising children, into
mm,
growing families, into growing communities, into building, you know, whatever it is that we're here to build. My route personally is looking more and more, like deepening and deepening and deepening into community. That's
mm.
like the arc of my human experience.
Do you think the lack of fathers now in the families is a big factor for this crisis of masculinity that we're having, or for all the trauma that a lot of men are going through?
There is just a different energy when men, embodied men, whether you're the biological father, a stepfather, an uncle, a brother, whatever it is, when there are aligned men in the household, energy gets shifted. Again, chaos comes into order, right? There's a difference when mom says, clean that up, and you ignore it, and dad says, clean that up, and you do it. There's just an energetic difference. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
I'm not here to understand what that is. I just know it's there. Okay.
mm,
And so like, yes, we live in a society that that young men are largely not only raised by women in the household, but taught and trained by them in schools,
mm,
right? And this is a big part of the undoing that we get to participate in. The undoing of sitting down, staying quiet, being in our heads, overthinking literally everything, not being in our bodies and moving and feeling and being free. You know, I feel like the masculine energy within households, within schools, within education, across all platforms, um, is definitely a requirement. Again, it's not time for men to sit out of the game. It's time for men to stand up, to get in the game, and that comes in big ways and small ways. Man, I had so many coaches when I was growing up um, who were very influential, both in positive and negative ways. I have an older brother as well who really shaped like my understanding of what it is to be uh, not a man, but a brother, right? There's a difference there, but like my big brother, like he took me to my first shows. He showed me music. He like showed me culture. He gave me a little bit of like structure. Taught me how to draw. Like all these things. It's not
mm,
that a woman couldn't do that. It's just that the energy coming from my big brother to do that is significant in my life. And so we need more of that. And for young men who don't have that, they need to experience that at a young age. Otherwise, and here's the part that's sad. Otherwise, they become afraid of it because it's too big, it's too loud, it's too much order, that it becomes something to be afraid of, not something to
mm,
be embodied in or in harmony with. And so that's what we need to flip the script on for young men who are coming up. Like give more examples, more embodiments, more uncles, more mentors, in a way that we can experience the energy in all the ways.
how's the work that you're doing with Sacred Sons in terms of helping the men to open up?
Men need the awareness that not only is it okay to open up, but there are spaces for it, and it's with and around other men. Um, we're not here to make men more emotional or to evoke painful things. Right? They're already present. Those things are already there.
Mm,
We're bringing the awareness that hey, it can look messy. You don't have to keep it together here. You can tell us that you're afraid, and no one's going to judge you. That's the essence of the work. It's permission. It's also creating a container of safety where that permission can be received. And specifically, we're taking the men through an arc of themselves, of the pieces of themselves, of the subtle energies. A lot of men's work. Um, in a lot of men's work, they use the frameworks of the archetypes, being king, warrior, magician, lover. We're doing a similar thing. We're bringing them through the elements of, earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit.
mm, yeah,
There's many frameworks that we can apply, but really the real magic in the work comes from belongingness,
mm,
being welcomed back into tribe.
mm,
Many men for the first time ever. Belongingness is what we live for,
mm,
and you can hide, you can try to lone wolf it, but there's something that's really powerful when that happens.
mm,
To connect brothers to their heart. Once we
yeah,
belong, once we come back into the tribe, there's a part of this work that gets us out of our heads and into our hearts. It's like we get to take our collective heart energy and plug it right into the sun
mm,
together. I swear,
mm,
it's that power. It's like that powerful. It's that potent. It's
mm,
that magical when it happens. And when we all feel connected to our hearts, then we make commitments. We say our prayers together. We say what our commitments are to our families, to our lives, to our communities, ultimately to the world. And then we hold each other accountable to those commitments.
Mm.
That's the work. That's the arc that we're on. Whatever those commitments are, we're only going to be able to achieve in our lives to the heights of whatever depths we're willing to experience, from the depth of our pain, from the depth of whatever our life experience has shown us, has brought into our awareness. When we get to go into that space and go through that,
Mm-hmm.
and again, you're not going through it alone, but to go through it together, we come out
Yeah.
on the other side. What we can accomplish from that place is so much greater.
You've been having so much experience with guys, and you're talking about a man connecting with the hearts.
There is also something out there like called a brotherhood wound, where
Mm-hmm.
like men have been hurt by other men or
Okay.
men who are close to them, were the perpetrators. And so when a guy comes in with that particular guarding, um, it can be tricky because the trust is not inherently there. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I've seen men come to multiple weekends, right,
Mm-hmm.
with layers of distrust for other men.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of the most impactful things, there was a brother who was going through this. He's like, he's not there. He just cannot look men in the eyes. He can't be vulnerable. He can't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
And like on the last day, let's call it, like the the potency of like the shares of the collective movements was so powerful that this brother just gets overtaken, goes into his process, and then comes into the circle and is looking at every single man in the eye, going, I love you. I love you. I relate to this in your story. I
Wow.
relate to that in your story. Like a man who is seen as being on the outside for the entire
Mm-hmm.
weekend, all of a sudden he is just awakened in that moment and feels free enough to like express his love, his gratitude, his resonance with the stories of the other men who were there on that weekend. I love to see that. I love to see when a man who's like super distrustful of other men for good reason, because those things really happen to him, right? But feel in that moment the safety and the willingness to express love once again to other men. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
powerful.
Exactly.
It's so powerful. And like and when we can take that back into the world, that's when real change can happen. When we're talking about someone having fear, hate, disdain, distrust in their heart, to having love, acceptance, gratitude in their heart, what type of decisions does that man make in his life
Mm-hmm.
and out in the world? Largely the situations that we find ourselves in the world, whatever situation that is, it's largely at the decision of a man or of men
Mm-hmm.
or of humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so as humans, we have to make better decisions. And when we are plugged into our hearts, when we are plugged into the abundance that this earth has to offer, when we are plugged in um, to the generosity that comes with being a man. People know men as providers, but men are also just generous.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this, uh, the way to think about men. Like we're generous with our energy. We're here to help. We want to show up
Mm-hmm.
and serve.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
when we are
And we want to
connected to
do
our
it.
hearts, we want to do it. It
Yeah.
fills us up to do it. That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth, and you know it, right?
Yeah.
And on the same time, we need to be acknowledged. We need
Mm-hmm.
acknowledgement. We have to be in the flow of reciprocity as well with women and other men and in our tribe, right? To be seen, to be acknowledged, um, and to be encouraged,
Mm-hmm.
right? To be encouraged. So for those women who are listening, or who hear this, like encourage the men in your life to come back into their bodies, to play, to do the things that they love, and to do this work around and with other men, because it's needed. It works. And I'm one who partakes in all types of ceremonies, and I've explored a lot of what the conscious community has to offer, what the earth has to offer in terms of like these initiations. And this is the one that I found that I'm like, there's no plant medicine, there is no altered state of consciousness that can do what brotherhood can do. And I've seen it time and time again, and I know it to be true. It's true for me. It continues to be true for me.
This brotherhood and this support is the biggest healing power whatsoever. I have experienced it, and I wanted to ask you what it feels, or what is for you to be connected with your heart, because I think that is where we're going all the time. It's like
Mm-hmm.
healing the heart of the guys, and we are ashamed to say, "Oh, we're connected with our hearts."
Yeah, I don't see being connected to our hearts as a weakness. I see it as a
Mm,
superpower. What it is to me is when I'm in my head, I'm anxious, I'm in the future,
mm,
and it's typically got something to do with numbers, money, or a task list of things I have to do. When I'm connected to my heart, I'm present. I'm in the moment. I'm aware. I'm Neo in the Matrix.
mm,
Anything that's coming, I can handle it. I can adapt.
mm,
I'm willing, right? Like this is the way it feels to be connected to the heart. And so when the altercation comes, when I'm connected to my heart, I'm present and aware and focused and able to like meet any challenge. That's the
yeah.
truth. And then specifically in relationship, when connected to the heart, we are able to also meet the feminine chaos, to meet the wrath, to meet the blame, to
Mm,
meet the feelings of inadequacy, of less than, to meet it in a way of presence, of listening, of like saying, hey, what's really there for me? I'm going to go in, I'm going to feel it,
mm,
and then I'm going to come out, and then I'm going to transmute it into action, because that's what the role of the masculine is. It's of, um, it's less of uh, deep feeling for the sake of of like of floating in it, and it's
mm,
like we go to the depth to feel it so that we can spring forward into positive action. That's how the mechanism works for us, as far as I can tell.
mm,
And so when we are willing, when we're connected to our heart, we're willing to feel that. It brings the clarity and awareness of what our positive action steps that we need to take in our life are.
mm,
And then it comes to responsibility, the ability to respond. Can we take ownership of our words, thoughts, actions, behaviors? Are we able to take ownership of it
mm,
and of the whole thing, of all of it? Because it's all of it.
mm.
And so
Yeah.
that's, that's another part of the work. But and it's like, you know, this work and what I'm talking about, this is not about enlightenment. This is not about being better than anybody else. This
Mm,
is not about perfection. It comes down to presence. How present
mm,
are you with yourself, with your loved ones, with what it is that you're doing? Doesn't matter if you're scrubbing toilets or cleaning carpets. If you're doing that with consciousness and with love in your heart, it'll be a great day.
mm, mm. Wow. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I totally agree
It's
with
for
you. I
real.
believe that when we are connected with our hearts, we as you say, we're taking better decisions in life, and
Yeah.
decisions is going to shape like how you experience in life and what is going to happen in your future. How do you achieve this level of awareness that you have right now and this experience to be a man who is really connected with your heart and helping others to achieve that as well?
Yeah, there's many moments. Fatherhood was a massive unlock
Mm,
into my own heart. Um, and prior to that, I mentioned I had an older brother. I have an older brother. I was also in a band. I also had a skateboard crew. There was many moments in my life where I had a lot of good friends, right?
mm,
And what I would call a brotherhood around.
mm,
And I found myself at a particular time in my life around the age of 30 after a big breakup, where I was like deep in the heartbreak, and also beyond the heartbreak, it was like the identity crisis of like I gave all of myself to this relationship such that I don't even know the fuck I am anymore. So I had to tear it down to rebuild the whole thing. And that was the moment where I was like, I looked around and I was like, oh, I don't have any brothers around. Like, I don't even have anybody to call. I had actually, at this time in my life, I'd moved to California. I was like working as a mechanical engineer, doing really dope work, making money, going to the beach or whatever. But like, I was in the rat race, and I found myself like, damn, okay, like I need men around. And so I started the journey just from that place of awareness in the rebuild, I guess. And how I got here in this work was after that breakup. I would say my first men's work experience, even though it was not men's work. I was invited to a sweat lodge, an EP ceremony, Lakota Sweat
Mm-hmm.
Lodge, here in Dulzera, California. And the man who was pouring that lodge, his name is Daniel Hawk Moon. And I drove up this mountain. I was filled with all this resentment and, kind of just disdain over this experience that I had, this relationship that was lost.
I know the feeling.
And we circled up for the kind of like the check-in. It was like, and I was sitting in a circle and I was like, wow, this feels good to be around people. And, we were all talking about spirituality and stuff. And he just goes around, why are you here? And he comes to me, why are you here? And I start telling him, she did this, she did that. She left me, this. And he looked at me and he goes, you know what all your relationships have in common? You were in all of them. He's like, why don't you look at the parts that are yours? Boom. And just moves on. And I'm just like, I went up there like for healing, right? I'm like looking for healing. And he just gives me a reflection. I was so cold, but so real that I kind of stopped me in my tracks. And then through the process of that lodge over those 4 rounds, I let it burn away. All that resentment, all that story that I was kind of holding on to, I let it burn away. And in the 4th round, in the dark, the lodge, he said, sometimes we have to be grateful for those things that are hurting us. Sometimes we got to be grateful for the thing that's killing us even. And in that moment, I had a vision, the door closed, the song started again, the drums are going, and I'm just like in it. And I had a vision where I just was filled with gratitude, and I just thanked her. And I went through, and I was so grateful for the moments that we met, for the time that we did have, for all the beautiful love that was shared. And I just felt this full encompass, like actual letting go and actual gratitude. And it was something that was not familiar, like up until that point. Like it wasn't even forgiveness. It was just like full acceptance of everything, of all my shit, of all the world's shit. It was just full acceptance. It really happened like in that round, I would say. And the door opened on my first time sitting in a lodge, and I felt like I was, reborn into myself and into this chapter of my life. And so from there, I continued on my journey of seeking. And like I said, my pathway went through multiple ceremonies, many communities. I'm someone who loves to gather people together. I did it most of my life, like putting together hardcore and punk rock shows for my band, for other bands in Dayton, Ohio, where I grew up. And in that journey of experience, I remembered my own sentiment of like, I need brothers. And so I called it in. And, our Sacred Sons, before Sacred Sons, we were running men's circles. We were running all types of different, family gatherings and circling men up. And in 2018, we came together, myself, Jason McKenzie, Albert Bastia, Neil Christensen. And we were like, it's time to bring this work to the people, and in a big way and in a powerful way. So here we are 5 years later, and it's working. It's working.
This is something totally necessary in the world. All these rituals and everything that you went through, I relate because I went through the same process. And I wanted to ask you, what are the initiation rituals that you have for the guys who are coming to you and they're like taking the first steps into this path to open it up, transforming their lives, and try to get connected with their hearts?
The truth is, it's a you have to be there type of experience. What I can say is we're not sitting in Sweat Lodge typically for our Sacred Sons EMX. We're not partaking in plant medicines of any kind. In fact, our weekends are sober, and we hold that peace in a sacred way. And so it's not about like taking more on, it's about stripping it down.
Mm.
And so the
Mm.
way that we strip it down to become fully exposed, to become fully like unrobed, to be fully like mask removed, lay down the armor. We have many processes that we utilize to deep into that moment. And for every man, it's a little bit different. And so sometimes that moment for him can come through what we call ritual connection. This is shadow work. This is where we're taking a man deeply into the feeling, into the vibration, into the emotion that's trapped, and literally moving it
Mm.
out of the body through collective witness and group. Sometimes it comes through ritual combat where we do physical training. We
Mm.
put the gloves on.
Mm.
We do sparring, um, and it's not like we're just putting men in to fight like Fight Club. We're building up to a moment, and then letting a man be met, and to meet another man of similar experience, size, weight, and to tap into the like all of the emotions, adrenaline, fears, anxieties, excitement, love that comes with that moment where you're like, oh shit, this guy's trying to punch me in my face for real, because
Mm.
that's really happening. This is an initiation that many men get on the playground. Many boys get a playground initiation, right? And so we're bringing an element of that back, and it's not for the sake of violence. It's that in 120 seconds, in a 2-minute round, where you're being met, everything comes to the surface. And so it's not about what happens in the fight; it's what happens after the fight. And what happens after is typically a massive cathartic release. You know, it's typically a realization or a revelation that comes through like a storm that's been that's been missing, that comes through like a storm in the desert that's needed to be watered.
Mm.
That type of a transmission comes through. And so we utilize ritual connection, combat, and these other physical and relational tools,
Mm.
you could call them. It's not like a workshop. This is not a retreat. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying? Like we use these pillars of connection, confrontation, and celebration to cycle um, men through their initiations. And then we also have offerings that are rites of passage. So we do have a Vision Quest, which is called Wild Rites, which is led by our brother Darren Silver. And that's more of a traditional Vision Quest, going out for 4 days, no food, no water,
Mm.
and being with the elements. And then we also have an experience called Maui Mana, which is led by one of our leaders named Ka'ale Kahi. And on the island of Maui, Kale is bringing through some Hawaiian Kanaka Maoli tradition, songs, food, experience, and then the work.
Mm.
And that experience also includes a lodge that Kale leads. But um, yeah, so there's many tools, there's many ways, there's many rituals. We have a vast array of them, and for every man, it's going to look a little bit different because
Mm.
we are truly unique. This is not
Mm.
some cookie cutter program or camp. You're not going to get a certificate at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what you will leave with is a new perspective, your eyes lit up, and a new commitment to life. Just so you know, like I really see men's work coming into the mainstream, just like yoga, just like jujitsu, just like Tough Mudders, and these type of experiences. Men and women, people, humans. We're always looking for ways to push the edges,
Mm.
um, and this is a way that we get to do that. That is authentic, that is physical, that is relational, and ultimately that leaves us feeling more connected.
Mm.
A lot of the things that people are seeking out there
Mm.
deepen our isolation,
Mm.
and even in plant medicine ceremonies and things like this, I've witnessed this where it's like, wow, you can have a big bang experience, but
Mm.
ultimately those are your visions. Nobody else saw them. If you don't have community around to
Exactly.
integrate it, that's going to be that's a tall order to integrate
Mm.
alone.
What it means for you to be masculine? What is to be a man? What it means for you to be a man right now in this time?
Yeah, I feel the most like a man right now when my beloved feels taken care of and supported and safe. And when my children are laughing and wrestling and climbing all over me.
Mm.
Um, I feel the most masculine. Um, I just bought a house. And so providing a home for my kids,
Mm.
like in 2023,
Yeah.
that, we have the vision and the, um, the blessing to like be here for the next chapter of their growth. That makes me feel like a provider, like a generous giver of my energy.
Mm.
I'd say those are the things right now that really define it for me. And if I was to put it into characteristics that don't require being a father, I would say that there's two ways that to look at it. Just like you said, there's always someone ahead of us, and there's always someone behind us,
Mm.
right? No matter where we are in our journey. And so, as a masculine being, if there's someone behind you, give them some encouragement. Show them that you see them, just with your energy.
Mm.
Men have the power to see others in a powerful way. Encouragement. And if there's somebody ahead of you, an elder, an uncle, a teacher, give them your acknowledgement. As a man, when you acknowledge another man, um, and let him know that he is seen for what he's bringing, this is also healthy for us. As this is healthy masculinity.
Mm.
There's power in our presence, and I'm here as a reminder of that. So
Mm.
thank you for letting me bring my pieces through and being a reminder today.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this work that you're doing. And yeah, I really hope to see you there in Edinburgh in September.
Yes, you will.
Beautiful. Thanks, bro.
Much love.